What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Hockey YouTube channel, episode 11 of season 7 of our podcast. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined as always by the one and only Jack Smith. If you're catching us live on YouTube, make sure to smash the subscribe button and smash it good. Hit the alert so you never miss a show. And for all the podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify so you're the first in line when the newest episodes drop. Of course, you can find us on all podcast platforms, but we recommend those too. Apologies, Oakham, for the tardiness tonight. Jack and I were chatting pre-show. We should probably do like a segment, Jack, where we just kind of, behind the scenes and put our pre-show talks on. I'm not sure they'd always be PG-13 rated, but
that's for sure.
We were here, Oakham. We just lost track of time, so my apologies.
You might see us get into it about a fantasy trade in one of our many leagues as well. So that could always be fun, especially if it gets real.
Did something go down?
It was our trade deadline in football. We talked after last week's show. I made a trade at like 11:59 at night. So I picked up some assets for a running back.
We did. Okay. So the Flyers have returned home for their I think it's a 5-game road trip, 5-game homestand where they're home for 6 of the next 7 games. We're going to start off the show talking about the Ottawa game, and obviously the title of the episode is Matvei Michkov, and obviously the Flyers had to travel up to Ottawa. And Jack, why don't you tell us about one of the premier travel organizations in sports and fans of Philly?
For a second there, I wasn't sure if you were going to do it, but nice segue. I like it.
Thanks.
Flyers fans, we got something special for you today. Looking to take your game day experience to the next level? Then look no further than Fans of Philly. With over 14 years of experience, they're the go-to team for putting together an unforgettable travel package for die-hard Philly sports fans. Why Fans of Philly, you ask? Let me break it down for you. These guys have spent years building the best relationships with bars, hotels, transportation, and the teams. You name it. Every trip they plan gets better, and trust me, they'll make sure your experience is top-notch. Whether it's scouting out the perfect hotel, finding the hottest nightlife, or securing the best seats in the arena, Fans of Philly has it all figured out. They know how to make your next trip an absolute blast. So head on over to fansofphilly.com. That's fansofphilly.com, and book your next Flyers road trip today.
Well done, Jack. So with no further ado, because we only have an hour's worth of time here, and we have a lot that I think we want to get to tonight, and let's kick it off. So obviously the title of the episode is Michkov related, centered around Michkov. And, he's leading the league amongst rookie NHLers in scoring, points, and goals. And over the summer, we were talking Michkov, and I think my expectations were a little bit, I don't want to say lower, but more not as high, I guess. I didn't expect Michkov to be a point per game guy. I didn't expect him to single-handedly rejuvenate the power play, and you did, Jack. You said, I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I was getting the sense from you that you were thinking, hey, he could flirt with point per game, but I got the sense that you were kind of lowering your expectations because other people were. And you also said that he could single-handedly improve the power play. And that's what's happened.
And one, in my opinion, went with the other. The numbers on the power play improving for the team and him getting those points on the team. That's what made sense to me. Point per game did see a little dramatic for a 19-year-old. However, it depends on who you talk to fan-wise in the league. Like a lot of people, like for me, with this 2023 draft, it was Bedard and Michkov. And Bedard was going to go first. There was no question about that. But I really felt that Michkov was pretty obviously the number 2 pick. And the only reason he fell was the Russian factor. Some people will argue otherwise, oh, Fantilli this, Carlson that. But no, for me, it was Bedard and Michkov. There was a lot of stats they were projecting when they were in similar tournaments that Michkov outplayed Bedard, and people made excuses for that, whatnot. They're so young, yada, yada, whatever. But the talent was there. We seen him play. So it didn't seem all that crazy that he could come in, to a team that last year, what we saw mostly played good for the whole year. So it's not like he was coming into a dumpster fire, So the point per game seemed a little much, but I thought he would definitely improve the power play, which seems to be the case. And I love that he's leading because going into the season, you saw the odds. And obviously, Celebrini was a name to watch. But he got hurt. He's, having a little bit of trouble getting back on track, also playing with a really bad team. But then there was our old friend who now has 2 goals on the season, and Cutter Gauthier. But he looks like nothing right now. He's got a few points. He's whatever. Michkov hit the ground running in the rookie game. Like he's a gamer. Like stats aside, he is an absolute gamer. He does not like to lose. He gets ticked off. It's unfortunate when you take bad penalties, but when I know the kind of player he is, it almost comes with the territory, and he can single-handedly win you games, take over games, and when him and TK are going, the team is playing at its best. And for a while, that's really where all their goal scoring had been coming from. But as a 19-year-old, to be that's where all your goal scoring is coming from, basically, it's a huge compliment. So, I mean, look, I hope it goes like this all season. If he's not a point per game, I'll get over it. I think we got to find the episode. I think I said like 65 points would be fantastic, for a rookie. And he's well on his way to that right now. Knock on wood, no injuries, no falling off. But yeah, it's about everything you could have asked for a rookie season.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, currently leading with 15 points in 17 games and 6 goals in 17 games. Just 1 point better than Dallas Stars rookie and center Logan Stankoven, who the Flyers could have drafted. But I digress here. That's a pretty big deal, though, because Stankoven's playing on one of the best teams in the league, has experience from last season. I believe that factors in to the next year. You're comfortable, you know what to expect, you know how to train. Where when you factor in Michkov, moving to an entirely different country, doesn't speak the language, everything is new here, and he's leading all rookies in points and goals, and at least hockey-wise has fit in seamlessly. I had the opportunity to talk with a Russian-speaking member of the Flyers organization last night at the game. If you guys want to kind of piece things together, you see a lot of them on TV and in interviews, things like that. Not going to name them, but you know who it is most likely. He said he's most impressed with Michkov's maturity and his maturity on the ice. He said he's wise beyond his years as a hockey player, and I think that you can see it. He makes a lot of smart decisions. He sees things before everybody else does, and especially when a player sees things, even before people watching. I think from the bird's eye view, like for example, when I watch guys, I always you can kind of see, what the next move is going to be on the ice, right? When a player makes a move or a pass that you're not expecting to see, I think that means his vision and his intelligence is next level. And you see that on a consistent, not just game to game basis for Michkov, you see it on a shift to shift basis. Like his mind's it's in another gear. Like he thinks the game so fast, and then he's got the skill to match it. And I think that's what makes him so dangerous. And what blows me away, Jack, is talking about all this. He's only 19 years old.
That's the crazy part. And I have a lot of comparisons to make, like with how the team's playing now, how he's playing now, and what we saw of old. He's making passes that his team of old never even dreamed of. Yeah. It's like he's had eyes in the back of his head sometimes. When he turns around and immediately passes the puck and it's right on the tape of a defenseman, like how did he even know he was coming? Like it's really, truly impressive. On the 2-on-0 with Konechny against Buffalo, like I think it was Buffalo, to do that little fake and then send it over for Konechny to pretty much dunk it. Like how many times have we seen the Flyers on a 2-on-0, 3-on-0 and not even get a shot off? And here, instead of just passing it, he's waiting. He does a little fake enough to really make the goalie commit and slides it over to TK. The little things like that, this team has lacked for 10 years. I mean, I guess G was capable of it, but like how many times we see this team get on a 2-on-0 and somehow not even get the shot off? But then they make it look easy. That's what superstars do. He's only 19 years old. It's incredible. Oh, and not to mention against Ottawa, he didn't throw the puck on net in a let's see what happens fashion. I guess in a sense he did, but he knew there was a spot open. You can tell by how he shot. He was aiming for a spot, and he hit it, and he wins the game in overtime. Like, all superstar stuff. Incredible.
Absolutely. And, hey, factor, like, we got the 19-year-old thing in, but factor in he's in a completely different world right now, a different country. He had an interview today, and Slava was there to translate, obviously, but we haven't seen too many interviews with Michkov this year since the season started, so it was nice to kind of hear from him. And a lot of the questions were centered around the language barrier, and he mentioned that he ditched his tutor. Things didn't really work out with the tutor, which maybe it was distracting him from his on ice game. He had mentioned that his teammates are helping him, adjust, which, I guess just being around guys who speak the language maybe helps. And I think being as young as he is will help him learn quickly as well. But it seems to me, according to Michkov, the hardest thing transitioning so far has been the language. And I assume that will come as fast as he wants that to come. If he wants to put it on the back burner for the off season so he can completely focus on hockey, and as long as it's not bothering him, because he's got a ton of Russian speaking people here, to kind of keep him company. Because I think, if you're around people that don't speak the language, you're not really talking, and then you start to feel lonely and all that crazy stuff. So he's got Zamula, he's got Fedotov, Kolosov, all on the team, and they have the power skating coach who's also being used as a translator in Slava. So, I think they got a nice situation for him here, and he seems to be adjusting. It'll all come in time. Again, that I'm just blown away. Could you imagine being a 19-year-old in another country doing all that? I don't want to say going through, because when you say going through, you automatically think something bad's happening. But this kid's doing what he loves, and he's just having to adjust. It's just a lot, and then to be performing the way that he is, it just kind of blows me away when you think about the human aspect of it all.
Well, you mentioned maturing, and another thing I meant to bring up is the guy got benched for 2 games, and did not pout, did not, as half the Flyers fandom thought, get upset with the team and want to go back to Russia, demand a trade. He took it like a man. He came right back and went right back to doing what he does best. And that's awesome, because how many players have we seen get benched or sent down? And some of them aren't even in the NHL anymore because they couldn't handle it.
There's a funny comment here from Olson Math. Flyers have never had a Calder winner, so I figure we aren't allowed to have one. Somehow it will not happen. As a Flyers fan, I always expect
I mean, I always felt that Simone Gagne should have beat out Scott Gomez, in my opinion. That was probably the closest I could think of. I think they had somebody in the late 70s too, who actually, I have to look that up. He might have won, but whatever. Yeah. As far as expecting the worst, the last 10 years has definitely done that to me. It is unbelievable. But there's something, even the disallowed goal that they challenged and got, I'm like, it's going to count. Like, I'm all angry, and it was actually a good challenge. It didn't count, but I expect the worst way too often. I'm getting better.
Last night, you mean?
Yeah. I was like, and to me, it was goaltender interference, because nobody knows the actual rule. They just kind of flip a coin. So they got that one. It was a good challenge. But
how surprised were you that was overturned? Because I didn't see goalie interference from any replay. I mean, did you get different angles on TV?
It was explained better. It's that he was in you can be in the blue, but if you're in the blue and the goalie hits you, then it's goaltender interference. If he was not in the blue and Kolosov went into him, that wouldn't have been goaltender interference, because he was in his blue crease. The goaltender is he's allowed to be in his crease. You cannot be in it. So you can be there, but if the guy bumps into you, you're going to get called. That's that version of goaltender interference, because there's 25 of them. But even then, I'm like, there's one referee on the ice because the other guy got taken out like immediately.
How crazy was that?
Messed up. I couldn't believe he got stretchered out. I was like, holy cow.
He did not move. I was a little bit afraid, Yeah, it was pretty crazy to see.
Update on that? Like, I heard that he was, he's good. He's okay.
Yeah, so they took him to the hospital. They said he's home today. So I won't drag that out, but he's home. They said all of his neurological stuff was good. He had feeling in all of his extremities. I think there was worry initially that he couldn't feel his arms. So that's why they kind of weren't moving him or anything. They told him not to move, I guess, and they just safety first. So this was, I think Bill Meltzer put this tweet out, but he was a former player in the OHL and played with some pretty popular NHLers. The only one that's coming to mind now is he played back with Taylor Hall back in the OHL. So
wow.
He's a younger guy. I was thinking, this is a ref. He's probably in his late 40s, early 50s or something, but younger guy. I think that puts him in his mid 30s. So yeah, God bless him. And thank God he's all right. That was pretty scary stuff.
Can't say I've seen anything like that. It was what was interesting to me, and I guess it does make sense, was the referee. It was all him the rest of the night, the single referee.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the game, when they called that stoppage for the net being dislodged by a friggin' fraction, I'm like, how did he see that? He doesn't get the trip on Konechny, but He can bird's eye view that. Like, I was just angry because they were finally playing hockey and trying to come back. But yeah, he was like hustling down the other end of the ice to make a call and just for like a stoppage that you couldn't tell where the puck was. And it's like, blow the whistle, blow the whistle. Oh, that's right. There's one ref and he's hiking it. So that was interesting. What do you mean you can't grab a fan for an emergency referee? Like that wouldn't be bad, right?
Yeah, I think there were a couple up in the press box last night that could have volunteered for that.
Oh, for sure.
But let's get to the game yesterday, and obviously, we'll talk about the others. But since we're on the topic, it was a pretty big game. There was a ceremony before the game for Eric Johnson, who played his 1,000th game on Saturday. So congratulations to Eric Johnson. That was pretty cool. And then the other one, Helge Grans, a player that we've talked about maybe a handful of times on this show, acquired during the Ivan Provorov trade 2 summers ago, was kind of just, I think, deemed as kind of a toss-in type guy. But, we talked about him, and I think I was sort of excited that they were able to get Helge Grans. Like, this is a big right-handed defenseman. Can move the puck. He's taken on more of a defensive defenseman role. But I think we saw a little bit of offensive ability in him last night, right? Like, he has that in him.
Well, the instincts are there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a shot, I think it was midway through the game, that had some zip on it that was stopped. So, okay, he didn't flub it. He didn't miss the net, which is, the Flyers thing to do. And then he gets his first career assist. Like, that's great. The Avalanche ain't no, slubs. So he had some offensive instincts that I wasn't suspecting.
Yeah.
Your first game at the NHL level, and I can't remember if he was called up before for a cup of coffee or whatnot, but first off, he was a surprise. Everybody was surprised. Erson, I believe they put Erson on the IR officially, and they called him up, and he's playing. We knew about the other injuries and whatnot, but for him to go into that game and play the way he did, not everything was perfect. There were some failed clears and some, if he had taken a second to look around, he could have probably made a better play. But overall, wow! Like, I think we saw him playing with Z. We're like, oh boy, the Colorado's going to feast on that pairing, and not the case. I mean, he really looked solid. I hope he can keep that momentum going. Could you imagine if we got out of the Provorov trade a first-round pick, Sean Walker, who becomes a first-round pick, and it Helge Grans as something worth of value? Like, holy cow. You said he was a throw-in. I mean, Walker was like a real throw-in. At least Grans had that. He was a prospect still. But true, LA was probably done with him.
Yeah, they were done with him.
They were done with him. But this is defense. These guys, they don't all grow the same, especially defense. They tend to take longer. And with Jennings just playing himself out of being in the mix, and same with Adard and being traded and next man up, good for you, man. Way to take advantage of a situation you may not get now with Andre getting hurt, because he was the next man up, and we already have a cluster on defense as it is. Amazing, these guys can step up and take advantage of this. So that's awesome. I really hope he can keep it going to some degree, and that would just be great.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you kind of want for where the Flyers are, right? They're not winning a Stanley Cup anytime soon, even though that's the goal. But they are rebuilding or reworking things, retooling, whatever word you want to use. They're kind of in transition, and they're taking on injuries. Cam York's hurt, close to coming back. Jamie Drysdale's out. We think somewhat close to coming back. Zamula left the game last night. I think he's okay. But, it gives opportunities for guys like Andre, who ends up getting hurt, and then Helge Grans, who comes in. And he didn't look out of place last night. And I mentioned, he had more, whoa, didn't expect that from him moments than, ooh, I don't know about that moments. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
I thought he in the third period, he played with Travis Sanheim on the top pair. That was the top pairing in the third period.
Yeah, if it would have went to a shootout, he may have got a shot.
Yeah. So, impressive first game against a really tough Colorado Avalanche team who, were struggling, but you could clearly see. I don't want to say the Avalanche were better as a whole, because Torch was saying that this morning, that Colorado is just a better team, an elite team. They were elite when Cal McCarr and Nathan MacKinnon were on the ice. Like, you noticed them, and they were dictating play, and they were in the Flyers zone a lot through the first two periods, and when the Flyers were able to get the puck out, they were right back in with the snap of the fingers. It was pretty tough to watch if you were a Flyers fan. I'm sure if you were an Avs fan, you're like, hey, we're dominating. And then, Cal McCarr, man, I don't even know. You slack off defensively for a second, and MacKinnon will beat 2-3 guys with one pass, and Cal McCarr just makes absolutely no mistakes from the slot. It's sucks to see because you want the Flyers to win, but watching that is something else, man. They're really masters of their craft, so it's fun to watch, unfortunately.
Yeah, a hat trick for McCarr, technically. Luckily, one got called back.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up because he kind of says that in jest. And for those not watching and listening, Occam Razor says, get aggressive, Danny, make a move and make Andre and Grans a third pair. And obviously, as a sample size guy, can't pull the trigger on that right away. But he got it. If this play at least a little bit keeps up, like, you really got to consider, like, even offense, defense, whatever. Danny's got to do. You got to think you got to do something, right? If your young guys are starting to show they can play or need more time at least to see what you have, and you got guys you're looking to get rid of who are playing well that might have some value, you really got to consider it. I don't think anything gets done at least until we're within range of the deadline. But it's something to consider if the play keeps up like this and these guys start knocking on the door.
Look, I have unpopular opinions about what I would do to the defense, and I'm pretty sure I made this known last year, right? So the biggest thing for me is not necessarily similar style defensemen, but they have three guys similar stature in Cam York, Jamie Drysdale, and Emil Andre. I'm not sure you can have all three in the same defense core. And so last year, if you guys were listening to the show, you knew that I really liked Andre as a potential PP1 quarterback. And in my opinion, Travis Sanheim can't play on the power play. He's very, very good 5v5, very good 4v4 and 3v3, and on the penalty kill, but I wouldn't have Travis Sanheim on the power play. Same thing goes for Cam York, in my opinion. You can play him 5-on-5, and you can play him on the PK, but he's, in my opinion, Cam York's not a PP1 guy. So for me, you have Andre Drysdale brought in the Gauthier trade, who is a project. So if you're looking to move Drysdale, you're not getting maximum value, right? You're not right now. He's a project. So I'm not moving him. If you want something of value, now of course everyone will go to Risto, right? And it's, to me, moving Risto for a center or a high draft pick. I don't know. I'm sure like teams get silly around the trade deadline, so I'm sure somebody would give up a late first or something like that. But you'd likely have to keep salary on Risto, and he's under contract for a few more years. Cam York, on the last year of his deal, he's gonna get a big extension. Like I'm telling you, it's coming. It's going to be over $5 million. It's going to be over 5 years. Cam York. I've been saying for a long time, Cam York, to me, is a very, very good second pair D, not a top pair D. And people take that as an insult. That's That's fine. I can't change anybody's mind. However you want to perceive Cam York, go for it. That's my opinion. Cam's the guy that I would move. If I could get something significant back in a hockey trade, if it's a top 6 center, Cam York is the guy. You're not getting that back for Risto. You're not getting it back for Drysdale. You'd have to put a package of guys together to get a deal done. Cam York is worth a lot more than all of those guys, in my opinion. So I'm moving York, and you're seeing Travis Sanheim, and it's not in spite of Cam York, but Travis Sanheim is flourishing on his proper side, playing with the defensive D. You know what I mean? So to me, it's not that I want to move York, but the Flyers are doing A-okay without Cam York in the lineup. So I don't think it shouldn't be a thought. It should be something to consider, in my opinion. What do you think, Jack?
So when they trade York for Ziegler straight up, like we talked about in the offseason, I can take my victory lap.
There you go.
That? People were like treating York like Chris Chelios, man. It was nuts. And I like York a lot. And remember, I was they should have drafted Cole Caulfield guy. And I've come around like you. York's a player. He's not the offensive guy we thought he was going to be, but that's fine. He plays defense. I like York, and I don't know what deal's going to come, especially if he misses a lot of time this year. We'll see how that. I think he's close to returning, so we'll see. But yeah, I mean, if other guys are flourishing, and you have to navigate the cap properly, so you don't tie yourself down into a situation. You've dished out a lot of money to TK, rightfully so. He's our best player. You got Coots on the books. We'll see how long you can put up with that contract and what he can give you. But there are trades that are going to have to be made, whether it's this offseason, this trade deadline. The idea is soon. They need to get a center in here. And I don't know if you want to jump into it now, but they have a serious lack at talented centers, and Frost isn't even playing. That's a problem. They're going to have to make a move for a center. And they're going to have to, they may even have to, in a sense, bite the bullet with somebody, but they have the assets to make it happen.
Yeah.
So if that's a guy you got to consider, if you start talking to his camp and he wants, I saw somebody put in there 8 for 8, like Dan Knightley, 8 for 8 for York. If he gets that, I'm going to jump. I would too. That is a big risk to take based on his
he's gonna want a huge, like I think
asking for that and getting less.
I think I mentioned it on the show before. They wanted to sign him they didn't want to sign him to a bridge deal to whatever it was 2 seasons ago, whenever he signed his deal. The Flyers wanted to sign him to a longer deal than 2 years and whatever he's making. And he declined. He wanted a longer term, big payout after the bridge deal. So I don't know if it's going to be 8x8. I'm not sure if it's going to be that high, but it's going to be over $5 million for sure. And then you got to think about, okay, well, they got to pay. Well, you would assume they're going to pay Drysdale at some point. You can't lock up the entire roster during a rebuild, especially when you got guys coming up behind him that can do things that he can't.
And think about what Michkov's going to make in only the next 2 years. I mean, he's going to get he's going to get 8 for whatever the hell he wants, and I think York ultimately in the chat saying it, and I agree. I do think it probably will be the number you're describing, but it'll be a bridge deal. And you're going to have to do that. And then maybe you trade him within that, or maybe you do sign him at the end of that bridge deal to something. But there's players that it's really an interesting year in the sense when certain guys, when the team is successful, who aren't in the lineup. And for the team right now, because their possession is so bad and the forwards aren't helping the team too much get out of their own end, and you're seeing really good teams take advantage of that. But almost the whole game was in the Flyer zone, and they're exciting on the counter rush. That's probably their best way of scoring. Maybe the power play is number 2, but we talk about their issues at 5-on-5 is because they don't have the puck long enough. They can't, and when they do generate it, they end up taking a stupid shot or a bad turnover, and then it's right back to playing defense for the next 5 to 10 minutes, which is why half the games they have 9 shots after 2.5 periods. Like, that's why you're dealing with that. They're taking too long to get going. And I see Frost as a guy. If your main way of scoring is the counter rush, Frost is not a counter rush guy. He's a cycle guy. And they don't do that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rough. there was excuses to be made last year. What's the excuses this year?
I don't know. It's the same story. The season started, and it started for everybody but Morgan Frost. Well, actually, a couple guys have joined them. There was a comment in here: the Flyers' second and third line guys just aren't up to snuff.
Well, that's why it was nice to see that Tippett and Forrester scored the other night.
Yeah,
because those are the guys you're relying on. I know Lawton's going to give you some stuff on the PK, but 5-on-5, it's just not there. I mean, I will say that the lines he's been on have at least had the puck in the other end. But as far as scoring goals, they're just – if it's not TK and Michkov, it's very little. It's here or there that somebody's chipping in when they can. It's really nobody you can rely upon. Where's Farabee when you need him? But he'll score, and then you're like, okay, and then he's gone for a while again. Yeah. He's back to missing the net. Maybe he'll have to post or something.
Too many guys like that, unfortunately.
There are, and they have a lot of wingers. Most of them are wingers. It's like they're gonna. I don't know if it's by the deadline, but I think they should do it this offseason. I want a center with this team besides Luchenko because he's a kid in his own right that Michkov can play with, and these wingers can develop with. Like you can't just keep throwing Frost out there and benching him, and then here comes Ryan Poehling. I love Ryan Poehling in a fourth line role. I don't want to, he was a second line center the other night. And I like that. I know that Torts likes the speed, and I get that. And that's why he does that. But is that when we're actually going to become contenders? Is Ryan Poehling's not going to be your number 2 or 3 center. They need to get real guys in here. They still need a 1. You can't do much with Coots. They're begging for Frost to become that player, and he just can't do it. So, I mean, they gotta, yeah, I think there was one person hanging on, and he runs the team, and I think he might be over it. So
here's a question, because I've had a suspicion that Cam York's been healthy for at least a week now. And now that Torts is in the media talking about they need more offense from centers, like they just need more. And he's talking about how it affects the wings as well when you don't have a distributing center. Could we see a trade sooner than we think?
I hope so, but how often do you see those? I feel like a trade this early in the season, it'd have to be one of those like hockey trades, as they call them. Right. They're rare, but it did happen. I mean, we had one earlier, with the Ronnie Adder. I'm hoping that would be great. That would be like, okay, they're seeing what we see, and it's not unheard of. Most of the time it happens and we're underwhelmed with the return, but at the same time, you got to try.
Sam's just going unhinged now. She chimes in. I'll be more patient with Tippett and Tyson, but I mean, Frost is awful, and I don't think Brink will be anything in the league. And Farabee's shit. That's so great. Well, let's talk about some of the guys on this list real quick. So Tippett and so Jack, I mean, in the summer, we said it. Not every player is going to take that step forward. It just doesn't happen where every young player gets better the next season. A lot of these guys had good years. I think Owen Tippett had a career year. Joel Farabee had a career year. Tyson Forster, a 20-goal rookie season. Frost had a solid season after he got over the benchings. And Bobby Brink had a decent rookie season, who I don't think Brink looks terrible right now, but he's still a guy that, if a team came knocking, I'd be answering. I like Brink. I would trade him. Don't get me wrong. If there's the right move came along, I see more fire from Brink than I do Farabee and Frost. Like I see a lot of at least he might burn you sometimes. Like he might pinch when he shouldn't pinch or find himself caught in the other end, make a bad pass. But a lot of lines that get going at least generate some offense. He's usually on that line. Like I talked earlier about Lawton, he really hasn't produced 5-on-5, but they're at least in the other zone. Brink was on that line. I can get over that. They're the kind of guy. This is a guy who's going to be a third line player. I'm not worried about a third line winger. They can find those guys. I like him particularly. He's cost effective. He's young. He might develop into something else. I'm not worried about him. But again, if the right trade came along, which have to be a package, why am I trading him 1-for-1? What are you going to get for him? For Brink?
Yeah, just by himself. What are you going to get for Brink? Another draft pick? What's the point of that? No, you got a 4th-round pick, a 3rd-round pick. What's the point? So I think down the line, maybe, or in a package, sure. But guys like Farabee and Frost, the reason I wanted those trades to be made in the offseason is because you didn't see how poor that they are playing. Now, where's their value now? You know, is the team really going to reach out for Frost and offer you anything of significant value? God, no. They'd be stupid to. Even if they like Frost and think they can unlock his potential, just navigating other GMs, you're not going to offer anything legitimate. You'd be stupid to, especially at this point. Farabee, maybe a little bit more, but not much. In the offseason, it's all potential. It's like you can offer him whatever. You know, you could really drive it up based on potential and then let them deal with it. But now that they've played and they're just not producing, and Frost is real bad because the Flyers need a center more than anything. They're begging for somebody to take over the number one center position, and he's not even playing.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I'm reading some of the comments here. Bobby Stink is funny. Brink has 9 points in 16 games, which I was not aware of. Over the summer, make sure you guys go check out the Dobber Prospects Report as well. Over the summer, I talked about Bobby Brink, and I could see his career trajectory going the way of he's got the potential to be like a Mats Zuccarello type player who did play for John Tortorella at some points. I think Zuccarello is a little bit more his hockey IQ is a little higher and was a little bit more responsible defensively. But when he broke into the league, he had a 23-point rookie season in 42 games, and followed that up with an 8-point in 15 games, and then 59 and 77. You know, never a big goal scorer, has scored 20 goals 3 or 4 times in his career, and has put up, 60-point seasons and topped out at 79. I don't know if Brink's going to be like, let's say maybe he's like a poor man's Matt Zuccarello, small skater. Maybe he's not his hockey IQ is not as high as Zuccarello's, but I think as a third line winger, Brink could be a 45-point, maybe 50-point player tops, right? And
I mean, as a third line guy, that'd be great.
I mean, he's going to get, he's going to get the power play time and he like, but that's tops though. Like, I don't know if he's going to get there on the third line type thing. Like, he'll have to get some top 6 minutes mixed in somewhere, but, and he's not going to get it with the Flyers with who they have at wing. Right. So,
and it's like, yes. And I want him to at least fill a spot until whoever else comes along. But that's under the idea that Danny does make some moves with his team. Like we keep coming back to Farabee. There's a reason when it comes to the overabundance of wings this team has, we come back to Farabee. Like the age, the contract, the lack of production, the games get hard. Like it's just, it makes sense if you're going to talk about moving somebody for something you need, which center, we're screaming for a center. Farabee's involved, and he's not getting you much on his own at this point. You could still hang on potential, and he was better earlier in his career, but now that he's looking to come out, and maybe he needs a center to play with too, but either way, it ain't happening here. So if you can parlay that with another player and get something you need and a pick, please do it. Please. It'll open up spots on your own roster and could get you something you need. Next year, I would like to go into the season with more than just Jet Luchenko being your third, potentially second line center.
Yeah.
Because he's still a kid himself. I know he really showed he belonged, but don't give the kid all that responsibility. Like, for other players to develop, they got it. It's not 100% necessary they do it this offseason, but I'd rather them do it sooner rather than later, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have and not to keep harping on Yorkie, but they're going to have to figure something out because he's due a contract. Guys like Risto, Sanheim under contract, Sealer under contract. I think Drysdale's got one more year after this year, and I don't think they're in a rush
just
to move
signed
him.
right before we traded for him. He might even have 2 years. I can't remember.
He's got a couple.
Well, him and Zegras signed. They were like holding out that season, and he got traded like 6 months later, maybe less. So I thought it was a 3-year deal each.
Let me see.
So this year, one more.
Fingertips. Is it one more?
I think it's one more. Yeah. So.
Year 2 of 3. So one more after this year. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I get what you're saying. They got guys locked up, but I don't know what York's going to ask for. It's funny, Frost don't have a contract either this year, and he's not a free agent. But like, if they have to keep him because there's no point in letting him walk for nothing, and they need centers, like, what does that contract look like? 1 year, prove it. 1 year, $3 million.
You need offense, and you can't get in the lineup over Noah Cates and Ryan Poehling.
He just doesn't fit the way the team is playing right now. I get it, but he should be able to figure. Most talented players can figure it out. Like, come on, how difficult it is to play with talented players on the counter rush. So I mean, I don't know. It's if you have to play, I'll be good, but you have to play the game my way. I don't like that. No.
So I brought this up last year. Like when he got going, he played a lot faster than his line mates. Like almost like you just said, he was doing his own thing and other guys had to catch up. But it seemed to be hurting the team more than helping, like he was thinking and playing at a very high pace, but it was way too fast. Like there was one instance he was playing with the Forster, who's not the most fleet of foot. And it's not like Forster was thinking the game slow, just Frost was on another level. And, a lot of people will tell you, oh, that's the line mate's fault, not being able to keep up. And it's like, well, no, because it takes in this case, 3 to tango here. It's, you got to be playing with your line mates. It's a team game. You can't be doing your own thing there. And, maybe that's a chemistry thing or what. But to me, it was like, wow, Frost is playing on another level, but he's not playing with his teammates kind of thing. They're not on the same page here. And I think sometimes that hurts more than it helps,
For sure. He's on his own little island. I remember we interviewed, what prospect was it? Same draft class. Oh God, I can't remember. I liked him as a prospect too. And he told Ratcliffe. Yes. Ratcliffe. Yeah. Yes. And they were like rooming together. And he just said, he's kind of like aloof. He's just like, he said something to him and they're supposed to be in practice. And he's just like playing video games. Like, huh? What? Like he's just out. I don't know. I just feel like he's one of those guys that you see the skill, you see the ability. At the end of the day, I think we're going to look back at Frost and be like, yeah, he was, Dad, tell me about this Morgan Frost guy. Oh yeah, all the talent in the world, just couldn't put it together. I really feel like that's what his career is going to be, at least with the Flyers. Like, hey, just couldn't put it together. That's a problem. There's a lot of players who are talented who ultimately aren't anything you hope they could be because they couldn't put it together. He has a lot of those signs.
Oh my God, Jack! What just popped into my head?
Hair?
Morgan Frost has been out of the lineup with the Flyers almost identically since Austin Matthews has been out of the lineup with Toronto.
That's it.
And I can't help but I wonder if there's something there. So Austin Matthews went out to Germany for, I don't know if it was a second opinion or another procedure, but there's speculation that there's something that could be there, and people want to speculate. You only go to Germany if it's something potentially long-term. Other people are speculating that it's a chronic thing. But can't help but wonder if the Flyers are keeping him out potentially to make a move. Now, that's all speculation, and we'll see. If I'm right, I'll take all the credit. If I'm wrong, I'll never bring this up again. That's how that's going to work. But maybe, right? Because his dad's up in Toronto. That's where he's from. It was his favorite team. Toronto's a playoff team. Barubi's up there. Would probably, tear him a new asshole. But, and there are people around the at Flyers games who will tell you they believe Frost can be, a 60-point guy with the right team. And I don't think that's the case. But if you can sell him to a team like Toronto, who may be desperate to make a move, go for it.
That'd be great. I don't know what you're getting back from. Maybe you're just moving on from him. I don't know.
Yeah, just moving on.
There's a couple of names in the comments. I don't think they're getting. I would take Easton Cohen, but I don't think we're getting him. I just drafted him in our fantasy league. I was like, hey, this guy's got a little bit more than I realized. And Frost, the values at like pretty much an all-time low. Like when he scored that first goal, when he first came up, like, Jesus, what was that, 2019 or something? That feels like 10 years ago. Like it's been a never-ending odyssey with this guy. And I want it to work for him. Believe me, I do. But me centers in the worst way. And it's like, dude, the position's there. Take it. Take it, dude. And he just can't.
Yeah. So, it's a shame because we saw kind of flickers of hope there the last season or two with Frost. But another disappointing slow start, unfortunately. And Flyers certainly could have used his offense there in the first 16, 17, however many games we're in here, because they're not great. not great offensively, at least not until recently. So
Right.
let's kind of move off the rumor thing a bit here, because a lot of it is speculation. Some of it makes sense, maybe some of it doesn't. Like I said, if we're right, give us all the credit. If we're wrong, let's never talk about this again. All right. What's next on our topic list here? Or what do you guys want to talk about in the chat? We could do that. So one thing I wanted to talk Tyson Forster a little bit, Jack. Like we were talking about earlier, not every player is going to take a step forward, and I tossed Tyson Forster's name out there as a guy that I didn't think was going to take a huge step this year. Maybe a guy that people would say might regress a bit. And I think he's got 5 points this year through, I don't know how many games they've played, 19 games, something like that. And 4 are goals. 2 have come in the last 2 games. I'm disappointed with how Tyson Forster looks. You don't even notice him most games. I went back and looked, and he was only averaging 1, 2, sometimes 0 shots a game. And this is a guy who I think his greatest asset is his shot. So a guy whose greatest asset is his shot, and he's either not shooting or he's not hitting the net. Not great. Doesn't look as good away from the puck this year. He wasn't getting the same, at least PK minutes. Torts has called him out, said he's not as strong on his stick, not as strong on pucks this year. And for a guy who, another one of his better attributes is his size, big body, supposed to be a strong kid, spent the summer in Philly working out, and we're not seeing it. Sometimes the second year is a little tougher for these guys than the first one. And I think maybe he was going through it. I like the goal that he scored last night. It was one of those dirty but good goals, to quote Jim Jackson, where he went to the net. The puck was kind of sitting between Justice Anunen's legs there, and he made a point to crash the net and popped it in. Those are the dirty goals he needs to score this year if he wants to get going. And honestly, I mean, how many times have we seen him rip shots from the outside for goals standing still? We haven't. Like, we all want to see it, but we're not getting it. So you're a big body, get to the blue paint and get some dirty ones. They're not all going to come gift wrapped and be highlight reel goals. Go get the dirty goals, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and then when you're scoring those goals, you have confidence. So when you do get that open shot, you're not grabbing the shit out of your stick and missing the net by a mile and a half. You're more relaxed and you can play your game, and then all of a sudden you're scoring more ways than your draft profile says you should. And you're a damn good player. That's a lot of the stuff you got to figure out when you're a sophomore in the league. And the biggest point I think you made up is why he's being dropped in a lineup where he wasn't last year is his play away from the puck is not the same. It's coming around a little bit these last couple of games, but he's was a guy known for winning puck battles, getting back on defense and playing strong defense. And he was not doing that this year. It's coming around a little bit, but at the very least we had that. So yeah, I hope he figures it out. Again, a nice solid center could help too. A guy like that, his development, and we'll see. He's still very young, still, even for him. So I still really like Forster, and we're just going through it. It is what it is.
Yeah, and so I want to. We did bring this point up a little bit ago, Johnny. So Johnny's comment is just got in here. Not sure if it's been talked about, but our wingers are struggling because we have poor center play. Just my opinion, and that certainly is a lot of the issue, right? Like Noah Cates is not the most offensive center who's had chances. At least before last night, I don't recall seeing too many offensive chances from Cates last night. Ryan Poehling, not the guy you want centering some of your most talented wingers. While I do like Ryan Poehling, but he's just not the guy for that. And then Scott Lawton is currently the second line center. So that's a lot of the issue. But I guess they got to find ways, because they can't just snap their fingers and, get a top 6 center unless you're willing to give up something of value. But we won't talk about that again. We won't go back and bring it up. If you guys are just tuning in, make sure you go back and listen to earlier in the show. We did some trade speculation and a couple of names that maybe people want to move, and a couple of names that maybe people don't want to move. And I guess my biggest thing, if you want something good, you need to give up something good. So I'm not married to any players like I used to be, like growing up, Jack. And I get that a lot of people on the timeline and whatever. You know, a lot of the younger crowd maybe still are. They get attached to some of these guys. I think Cam York's an excellent defensive defenseman. He plays the left side. There's a lot of really good second pair defensemen in the NHL. You know, I think we're attached to him because we watch him every night and maybe we've seen him grow a little bit. There's a lot of Cam Yorks out there, whether you want to believe that or not, unfortunately, so that's why to me, he would be expendable. Like you can replace him now. Andre Sanheim's already replaced Cam York. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm coming from.
I'm telling you, man, if Andre shows us last year, what he did this year is last year, they don't trade Cutter for a defenseman. They're trading him for maybe a Rossi or something like that. I'm telling you.
Jack, how about this from Teddy? Any chance Jack can be on the post-game shows? He's full of piss and vinegar, as people like to say.
Yeah, you should have seen when the team was real bad. I used to get I had a newborn, so I'm just going through that. I don't have a whole lot of sleep. So I'll get on there eventually. I'll see what I can do. But Jim, you got Jim's notes. You got the little icon, and you followed that up with your rumor video that killed it. With Rossi, I believe was discussed. Like, Jim's the producer. He yells at himself on the thing.
I just told everybody I was trying to play it off like I had another guy.
Let's
see, producer, get the graphic up. I'm yelling at myself during the show.
You smirk when you do it.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, well, Jack will get on for a post game eventually after like a tough loss or something.
Wait till the team is like legit and we're going for it. Like, okay, the rebuild's over. Michkov's here. He's locked in. We got him as center. We got our defense. We got our goalies. We're going for it. And they lose a bad game or they get off to like the start the Sixers got off to. Perfect example. If the Sixers are a contender and they're 2-11. If that happens, yes, you'll see me piss and vinegar and everything in between, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's too funny. The next time the Flyers lose 5-0, that'll be your cue, like the bat signal for Jack on the post game.
Especially if they're trying to win and they get embarrassed like that. God forbid to a division rival.
I see a Cole Knuble comment somewhere in here who had a rough majority of the year last year. And has sort of found his game. He came on, I thought, a little stronger towards the end of last year. Finished with 20 points in 36 games. This year, Jack, his second year at Notre Dame, 13 points in 10 games for Cole Knuble.
Was he like a 5th or 6th round pick?
Figured some things out. Yeah.
Center?
He was. He is a center. 4th round pick, 5'11". He's listed 5'11", 185 pounds. So I always assume that's bullshit. But that's what he's listed as. No. Yeah, 5'6", 160 soaking wet. Yeah, that's but yeah. So good name drop there from Oakham.
And he's a son of a Flyers fan favorite. Love it.
Yeah, so he'll be on the team next year. Book it.
Book it.
Yeah, so a lot to get to. We didn't really talk about the defensive injuries, did we? Did we really touch on that?
I think we just talked about the people who have taken over for them. I mean, who else? Zamula got hurt. Did anybody else get hurt that hasn't since last game? Just yesterday. No, I know that 3 players got injured, but 2 were forwards. And Zamula was the one. I think he
I thought he
hurt his shoulder or his collarbone or something. He
got crunched, and people
dropped the arm and just
have that look, and
they just went straight out. Like that's never good. Never.
No,
I cannot remember the other injuries. I think Andre is week to week, or maybe it's only going to be a week or so with a lower mid body injury.
Yeah.
Lower mid.
They didn't put him on the IR, so I think that's maybe a good sign. I don't know.
Yeah. That can always change that too. So I don't know. I thought York be back by now based on what we had said, but maybe what you had alluded to, but now if they're getting compounded with these injuries, you got to get him back in there.
I got to tell you, I was surprised that they called up Grans instead of just putting York back in the lineup and I don't know.
It was shocking. And he's like, he's up and he's going to play. It's not like he's going to sit in the press box. He's there and he's going to play. It's like, okay, I'm all for it.
So, I mean,
I have a question.
We speculated. Go ahead.
I don't know if you can look this up faster than I can. So, not that it's an issue, but if they had to call up, if they had to call up a forward, how's Ollie Lixell doing this year?
Oh, hang on, I'll tell you. He did look good in camp, though, didn't he?
Because the Rocket came up, Anthony Richard came up, and we're all, He's doing
point per game or point per game rocket.
Can't take them out of the lineup. You can't. How could you? They can't score as it is. He's a point per game. You got to keep him in the game. You feeding Eric Johnson one-timers. And if, God forbid, somebody else got hurt, well, 2 guys got hurt. I just don't know how serious it is. If somebody got called up, I would assume he would be the next one because it was between Richard, him, and Luchenko out of camp. So just curious. I know we want to see Tuamala, but, it's got to be one or the other, right? Like, am I missing somebody offensively?
Hang on, I got you for Lixell. Any day this wants to upload. There we go. He's currently got 3 goals in 14 games, 11 assists. So 8 assists. So he's kind of going the same way.
11 points.
Most of the wingers are going terrible. There. Yeah. I mean, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. How old is he now? 20, 25? Just turned 25? Yeah.
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 Just curious. See how the injuries come along. But
I think Tuamala is having a pretty solid year down there, if I'm not mistaken.
I hope so.
While we're at it, let's just look him up. 16 points in 14 games for Tuamala.
Oh, he's the guy. He's the go-to one. If he can keep it up. He fell off last year. It felt like other teams, from what I read or heard, was that they really focused on him, and that's where he started to fall off. Because I believe he made the All-Star team last year.
He also got injured near the end of the year.
Yes. So I would hope that he's still doing this with teams recognizing that he's a threat for the Phantoms. So if he's producing and he's a threat and they know it, that's really good news. So good. Yeah, no, he's the guy then. Bring him up.
I mean, I'm also seeing like, hey, we have a guy that's point per game in the AHL, 21 years old.
Can he play center?
If you want to make it, yeah, right. This is what I mean. Like, you have an abundance of wings on the NHL roster. You got guys who are now, getting their game together in the AHL. Like, who needs wings out there? Like, who wants a package deal? Like, Flyers can put one together. They have an abundance of defense, a bunch of capable guys on D. Like they can put 10 players in this lineup, interchangeably. Maybe that's a little bit drastic to say, but it's, they haven't missed a beat so far. I'll knock on wood there.
Right.
So yeah. Linden chimes in. He jumped Jennings and McDonald in Lehigh.
Grons, I would assume.
Grons, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that is a good point. They didn't bring up Hunter McDonald. We know how they have been trying to ram him down our throats, and we expected to see him sooner rather than later. I think at the beginning of the year, I said towards the end of this year, I think we'll see him. But that's a good point. They chose Grons instead of Hunter McDonald. I mean, maybe it was a stylistic thing because Hunter McDonald's a guy you call up if like Eric Johnson's out or Sealer's out, or maybe he's just not ready. So maybe it had something to do with that.
So this is all. I mean, I'm sure it has something to do with Grons playing right side, but this is also year 3 of 3 for his contract, Grons. So it's like, you want to see what you got in him or what, and maybe it's a possibility that he's still, moved in a deal. Like who knows?
Yeah,
I'm not attached. I'm not attached to him either. Like he was
free money the way I look at it.
Yeah,
free money.
Right.
I mean, he could be a sweetener in a deal for sure.
Yeah.
And oh man, come on, Danny.
Yeah,
get on it, Danny.
They have pieces, like they have a lot of spare parts here, which I don't know how much value you get back for spare parts. Do you know what I mean? That's why kind of my point earlier was we'll ship out one of our better defensive D guys, but I don't know. That's my thing. We'll see though. Bonk scored another in the bumper today. Hey, thanks for the prospect update, Fancy.
Yes.
I got a video coming out later this week on Flyers prospect updates. 15 points in 16 games. And I think Denver Barkey's on fire too, if I'm not mistaken. He's got like 5 multiple point games in his last 5 games or something like that.
Oh, baby. All the more reason to not trade everybody, but to make some kind of trade. Let's go. Take a risk, man. Cutter kind of forced your hand. And I think they navigated that about as well as they could.
Yeah.
But this, you're gonna lose guys for nothing. It feels like. So if you can make something happen, please, by all means.
Yeah. Well, this turned into a fun episode. We haven't had one of these in a little while where we end up talking trade and speculation and things like that. So that was fun.
Yeah. I mean, look, the team I saw right before they played Colorado, they started off the year 2-6-1. Since then, they were 6-2-1. So it's like, great. They're doing much better. Didn't expect them to be Colorado. They made it a game at the end there. I am seriously concerned about their offensive woes. And now the injury bug seems to be butting him a little bit. We'll see what ultimately happens. But Kolosov, I think he played well. I think he had a good game. There's not one goal. Not one goal. I'm like, he should have had that. I mean, Makar had 2 of them, right? And I forget who had the other one.
I think it was Lehkonen with an assist by Makar, maybe.
Yeah, I know Ratinen had 2 assists.
I think.
Oh
no, it was Middlestad. I apologize.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah. And that's a star-studded defensive team too. I mean, they got, held their own. He held his own. He looked good with his gloves too. Could use some help, rebound control and whatnot, but I can't complain. Him and Fedotov's reemergence, even with Urson being on the IR, I think they'll be okay. I don't know if they'll be great. Sanheim is performing above and beyond his contract. Like, these are some of the positives. If they can just get the offense going and just sustain pressure, I don't need them to blow out a team 6 to whatever. Just sustain pressure. Get shots on net, please, and retrieve the puck and keep the freaking puck out of our zone for majority of the game. And then I think you posted the other night, Flyers lose another second period. They trail like 2-0 now. It's like that is still, even if they don't give it that many goals, they're still always losing that period, and it's an issue.
Yeah, they're kind of digging their own grave there, like setting themselves up for failure in the third, or, you got to turn it on, and you're chasing the game. Like they've been at their best when they score first. Like if you go back and watch, and I know lesser teams, but Buffalo, who else did they just play? San Jose.
San Jose, yeah.
I
think they scored first against Ottawa too.
They did, yeah. That was
Minnesota.
Man.
They scored 2 goals first, but his second period kills them. It's a perfect example. Both those games, like second period, killed not Buffalo, but Ottawa, the Wild, even San Jose. Like, just letting them hang around, not finishing, and before you know it, you're in overtime.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this Flyers are far from perfect. This is like a true. I don't want to say. I mean, they're a mediocre team right now, but I think a mediocre team with a potentially positive outlook, depending on how you want to look at things. And, like, there are a lot of Debbie Downers, a lot of negative Nancys out there that will tell you, like, yeah, they're mediocre, but they're closer to the bottom than they are to the top, kind of thing. And it's like, well, I don't know if I don't want to believe that, or if I actually don't believe it, but I think there's a plan here. To me, it's pretty clear what the plan is, and it seems like they're inching closer to where, like Jack, like I think, a lot of people wanted to see a move in the summer, and I'm like, well, we can be patient. I think it gets to a point where not that the hand has to be forced to make a move, but you're starting to get a clearer picture that, what we have now is not going to get us over the top. You're starting to see stuff from other players, Helge Grans, Emil Andre, Travis Sanheim is turning into morphing into one of the top defensemen in the league if you can keep this up. You have wingers that maybe are underperforming, whether you want to blame that on the lack of talent at the center position or, just, regressing in year 2. You have potentially 3 NHL goalies in Kolosov, Fedotov, Urson. So it feels like, they're getting pushed into the point where it's like, we almost need to make a move here, like, does that make sense?
There's too much. I just feel like it'll be a big missed opportunity, and they'll only shoot themselves in the foot if they don't get aggressive with moving out pieces. They have an abundance of a position. They have a need at another position. Like, please do something. They even have, and then you look at our chat. Like, look at the prospects they have going right now.
Mm.
Like, Bonk looks good. Gill looks like he could be a player. You just discussed Barkey's killing him. Bjornsson's killing the WAHL and save percentage, and we haven't even brought up Zavrag and how great he's looked, like playing for the number 1 team in Russia. How was he, 19? Like, Jesus Christ! Like, they have more than that coming. They have 3 first-round picks. They have 3 high second-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes all the sense in the world to try to acquire something you need now with prospects or picks and players, definitely players on the team now that you deem not a part of the future. And look, I'm a big sample size guy, but how much sample size do you need with some of these guys? Like Frost, like Farabee. Sorry, it is what it is.
It feels like something's coming.
It
just
does.
Has that feel, doesn't it? Like
it does. And I'm gonna, like, if we go to the I'm gonna have to give it to at least the draft. I'd say the draft, because I really don't want to be let down. I really think something should happen, and I don't want to something doesn't happen at the trade deadline. Well, that's a little bit of a different scenario. Most teams are loading up, not making player for player deals. Something could happen around now. Usually if a hockey trade is made, it's now. But like the trade I'm hoping they can get is more of an off-season thing. And I see it happening around the draft. It can be before, it can be after, but right around the draft, because that's when they have their picks. And I cannot see them making all 3 first-round picks. I can't see it. People talking about moving up. We don't see that very often. We do not see that very often. Even the later first rounds. I don't think it's going to be that earth-shattering if they move from, let's say, Edmonton, has a playoff run. They move from 25 to 19. Like, that's not, they need something more significant than that. So, how about Boston having 13, 14, and 15 that year? And believe me, they tried to move up and they couldn't. And my God, that draft alone, 2015, they could have killed it. But I don't see them moving too high into up the draft board. I just don't see it. I think Colorado's going to figure things out. Edmonton's going to figure things out. These picks aren't going to be where they think they are. And even the Flyers aren't going to be as low as we think. And say if you're drafting at 12, 21, and 26, what does that really do for you making those picks? You got to trade at least one of them for something.
Yeah. So we'll see. Halfway to the trade deadline, if you will. And, in the meantime, we get to see how things play out, who maybe plays their way to the roster next year and who plays their way off the roster. We'll find out. So we're coming to the end of the show, about an hour and 7 minutes into an hour-long show. Jack, any last comments, last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I can't. I got nothing. Let's hope that the Flyers can figure out their offense and make it a season. They got Carolina tomorrow, I believe. Carolina tomorrow, and the big Michkov versus Bedard matchup on Saturday at home against the Chicago Blackhawks. Be there. I'm taking my father and my son had such a great time at my son's first game. We're going back already. We're going. There you go. So yes, and Michkov hat trick at least. There you go. If you guys are at the game, son went to Jack. My son went to one game, and it was Wild as they beat the Wild 7-5. Michkov goal and assist. Coots hat trick. You know how long it took me to see a hat trick live? My son's first game, hat trick, 5 points from TK, 5 points from Coots. Like an absolute baller of a game. So hoping for the same exact result. Good luck, Charm. So yeah, we're going to wrap this one up. I'll be back tomorrow night with a post-game show for the Carolina Hurricanes, Philadelphia Flyers. And I'll also be back Saturday afternoon for a post-game show for the Chicago Blackhawks and Philadelphia Flyers, both live from Wells Fargo Center. Make sure you guys stick around after the game to hang out, keep me company. What else do I have going on? I'm going to try to do a follow-up video and maybe try to get a guest for it on the Bobby Brink, Joel Farabee trade speculation. If you guys haven't watched that already, Anthony DeMarco was on TSN Montreal 690. I don't know, some radio station in Montreal, and was talking about the Wild and mentioned, I know maybe the Wild are kicking the tires on a couple Flyers players. So make sure you guys check out that video and, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to try to get somebody from Montreal media on to talk about why they would want to do that trade from Minnesota's perspective, why they'd be interested in those players and who they might want to consider moving. Because, as Flyers fans, it's always like, oh, right away they want Marco Rossi, or, they want Kapril Kaprizov. Somebody in the chat, I saw that. I'm like, oh, my God, what are you smoking over there? But so maybe we'll get some realistic responses from somebody in the know and up in Minnesota. So make sure you guys check that out. I appreciate everybody who watched that already. All right. So if you enjoyed the episode tonight, make sure to subscribe, give us a follow on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Make sure to set alerts so you're the first to know when we drop a new show. And for all of our latest episodes, articles, and updates, head over to hwhockey.net. For Jack, I'm Jim. Make sure you guys have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow night. Oh, yeah. Let's go Flyers. Let's go Flyers.